so I'll hit record. Okay, so we're recording. So this is what Damien is looking at, and I'm looking at is the RTO interface. We simply have one course. Everything's done through a wizard course builder. I've already set up a course. So I'm going to go in and edit it to show you how it works. Everything happens under an actions box, be that as a course or a student or a training plan. So it all works the same way. So once you get used to one process, it's fairly straightforward. So I'm just going in to edit it. I've already enrolled myself in it, so it's warning me that I've already have a student enrolled in. And then you can probably see there's a number of steps in here, Damien. So we start off, we give the course a name, nothing special there. We then have a whole pile of different drop downs around building the training and assessment strategy, what assessment methods we're going to use. And in this case, as I've sort of already described, we've got some underpinning knowledge questions, some of which are competency questions asked by the assessor. Others are quizzes of really any type, but I've just set up a whole pile of essay type quizzes which are asked of the student. We're setting up some documentary evidence requirements. We're setting up some workplace task logging if they don't have evidence. And we're setting up, we can set up whether or not the self-assessment is first reviewed by the assessor before the candidate can continue, or we could set it up that the candidate can review their own self-assessment and continue on. So, for example, if you're taking enrolments over the weekend and you're unlikely and you want people to keep moving, you can set it so that the candidate can do it and then come back on it. We are setting up, if they're doing a self-assessment, we're setting up use the packaging rule. We can set up that we can limit just one unit, any number of units. You set up the framework as you like. So that's in that section. The next little block are used predominantly by our public RTO clients, which is a whole pile of printable documents that they provide candidates. So, for example, an evidence summary report will just simply list all of the required evidence for each unit. So you might give that to a candidate before they commence. There's a whole pile of other things, but they're all hard copy, offline books that render content into predetermined templates. The student view is we just ignore that for RPL. Course details, we can group courses into different departments, into different assessor groups. So automatically, certain assessors only see certain groups of courses or certain groups of students. And the final one is we can publish the course once it's live, publish it to its own web page. So a student you could have a little tile off your website, and the student could go and enroll straight away into the course with self-serve in a sense. And so I've set all of that up. You can come back in and out and do all of that, but that's all set up. Next, we choose the qualification. I've already chosen that. By automatically, it'll just allow you to pick whatever's on your scope to stop courses being built outside of scope, or if it's a new course that's coming up that's not yet on your scope, you can still pick it up. Click this little button down here, pick up the course, build it ready to go for when it comes onto your scope. So that's the qualification bit. So from Mark's perspective, we're now at stage 4, where we have all of the units that sit behind the course, and that's a case of switching them on or off. Up at the top, we have what we call a validation dashboard that rereads all of the packaging rules and tells us whether or not we have a compliant course, or we can have, I guess, what you'd call an over-compliant course. So we might offer, so there's 10 units for the Cert IV TAE. We might actually offer the candidate 15 units for them to choose from, and then go that way. But for the moment, for this demo, I've got 10 units. Everything's green, all ready to go. If I didn't have enough units or too many units, it would flag. So if I take that off, you can see it changes to red flag, and we can just override the totals. So sitting behind all of Skillsbook is every unit, every unit in the nth detail. So we have all of the elements, performance criteria, skills, knowledge, evidence, etc., and we use that to build content from here on in. Okay, so I don't know if I've matched your elective choices, but for the moment it doesn't affect what we're doing. Okay, so I've chosen my qual, picked my units, and now I'm in the next stage. I'm in the documentary evidence. So this starts off as just a blank item where I might type in what it is I'm asking the candidate to provide. There's a couple of different options. We can upload a CV if you already have a whole pile of content built that you like, or we can do some sort of lazy shortcuts. If you like, I can go, if I click a button that says copy evidence, I can go drill down into a unit, pick a specific item of critical aspect of evidence, which might be this one, and when I hit save, it'll drop that into an editor box where I can play around with that text. But because I've used that button, it's automatically mapped back to the source that I got it from. That's one option. I'll reset that because I've already done this. The other option is I can click an auto evidence, which will then ask me what type of evidence I want to populate in here. So we have performance evidence, the overview of assessment, the critical aspects, the context of and specific resources for assessment, guidance information. So I choose which one of those items from the evidence piece within a unit I want to automatically populate into here. In this case, I've already done this, and I've clicked the critical aspects for assessment, and it'll automatically then drop every evidence requirement that's required by each unit into here. I've just sort of cleaned those up and made sure there's no typos and all of that sort of stuff in there, because there are quite a lot of those in training.gov.au. And you can see it's automatically mapped to the unit requirement. So what we're asking the candidate to do is to provide the evidence that it actually asks for the unit, don't just give me your resume, position description, and a shoebox of stuff. In this case, I'm looking for a minimum of 2 learning programs that have particular context. So we're asking for specific detail for each one. So I've set up the evidence. As I said, that was just me clicking an auto evidence box. 10 seconds later, that's done. And I move on to the next item. Okay, so here, this is where we're loading tasks. Now, tasks are used obviously in apprentice type training. Tasks are used as a great way of collecting competency progress in the workplace. But in the instance of RPL, they're used as a default, where a candidate clearly has the knowledge, is clearly doing the job, but can't provide the required evidence. So you might ask them to log when they're doing it and include their supervisor in the assessment piece to say whether or not they're meeting the requirements of the workplace. So the screen that Damien is looking at allows all of that configuration. Again, similar to evidence, I can copy detail direct from a unit. So, for example, if I was particularly wanting to focus on a single performance criteria, such as complete and process an assessment report according to agreed assessment procedures, I can click that, and that will become the content of a task that I can then overwrite but automatically map to it. Or in this case, I've again chosen the lazy option, clicked auto tasks, and it's created a single task for each unit and a subset of tasks, which are the elements, which, sorry, you can't really see in this green background, but those are the elements that sit behind it. Again, I can go and overwrite that and contextualize it to make it very, very specific. In the case of a TAE, you could argue that an RPL candidate looking for a TAE should actually understand the TAE language in the package, but in other packages you might have a different approach. So the other little bits in here, I've actually asked by default that the candidate would submit a task that they've done in the workplace three times. We can change that. We can group, just as we can do across any of these. We can group tasks so they display under different tabs. We can group evidence into different sections. At this stage, I've left the whole lot open, and we can configure additional items that we might want the supervisor to say. So by default, we simply ask about overall performance, and the supervisor says whether or not they're operating at the required performance or they're a beginner, anywhere between 1 and 4. We might add into their ability to work in a team, communicate in the workplace, meet procedures, all of those sort of softer skills that are hard to get assessment evidence on. So that's how we configure that bit. So at this stage, I've simply clicked go for it, generate all of this automatically, and so you can see we have one task for each unit. Sitting underneath that, the elements, and automatically mapped back to unit content. So I've set the tasks. So far, Damien can see we've set evidence, we've set tasks. We're now on quizzes. But from Mark's perspective, this is the third part of the triangle of assessment. So we have sitting here, I ripped out of our, we have a Moodle sort of play site. I ripped out of that a whole pile of dummy questions for TAE that we've been playing around with for many years, imported them into here. I've put two groups of questions, two groups of questions. For each unit, there's a set of knowledge questions. This first one I'm looking at, assess competence. There's 18.
I'm with you now, David. I can see your screen.
Oh, you can see. Perfect. Okay. So, I've set up one group of questions that are accessed by the student, so an applicant knowledge test, and the others that are for an assessor to provide in a competency conversation or an interview. So I've simply loaded those in, just like everywhere else. There's an action button you can view and edit and go in and map and do all of that sort of thing, but they're automatically all mapped. Then right down the bottom, there's a self-assessment which has been created automatically. You can see there's a you can see it's already been created. It's grayed out. So what that does is go and create the. I click that button, and it'll automatically go off and grab all of the knowledge statements, all of the critical aspects of evidence, and all of the skill requirements of each unit, and put them into a checklist, unit by unit, that asks the candidate, do you know, do you have, can you do? Those self-assessments are mapped to their subsequent steps by this decision tool. So you can see sitting behind ethical, there's a knowledge question here about, do you know about the ethical and legal requirements of an assessor? And we can link that to a quiz that's set up behind the scenes to that item. And again, I chose the lazy option and clicked anything that said, do you know, to its knowledge statement. I just click that, and away it goes. When the internet starts working again. Hang on. Oh, there we go. All right. So you can see I've missed. There's a few questions I don't have there's a few items I don't have questions for, which are no's, and everything else is we've got a few blanks here, but we have a whole pile of yeses, and we do that for the tasks, we do that for the evidence. And so here's my evidence questions. They're all linked. There's one here I'm missing two. Okay, and we go do the next for tasks. Okay, so the tasks are all linked. They're all yeses, and that's the basically the end of setting up my course. Okay, so just know that you're back on the back and can see what we're doing, Mark. So we set up the training and assessment strategy, which was basically this RPL, etc., etc. We chose our assessment methods as questions, and you can see we've got a pile that aren't mapped, and that's simply because if we were to put this up properly, we would need to go back in and fill those gaps. Our documents all squeaky clean. We've got 9 items and nine are mapped. Tasks are squeaky clean, 10 and 10 are mapped. I picked units to go in there, evidence, task, quizzes, and workbooks. We ignored all of there. We've got none of those switched on. So my course is basically ready, published, and put online if I was to clean up the gaps in the mapping. So we can see where the mapping issues are when we download the whole course and our content versus unit sort of mapping, if that works for me. Here we go. Just waiting on my computer, I think. Yeah. Okay. I'm just waiting on my computer to catch up. Here we are. Okay, so we have each of the unit. Oh, let me just see if I can make that a little bit bigger for you. Zoom 200%. Okay, so we have each item and each item of the unit content in column C here. We have the assessment items that we've built and have sort of auto map themselves to each of those. So as you can see, we've got here's one where we have the self-assessment and evidence and a task. We just have a task for that one, so on and so forth. So we get that big mapping matrix that's auto-created, and we can do a sort to see where the no's are and fill those gaps. So this shows whether or not it's mapped or not. So at that point, that's my course set up. Obviously, we're assuming we've done the QA and we're ready to publish that course. And then at that stage, we can enroll a student. I'm going to go on to the student side. Do you have any questions on the RTO side?
I'm good so far, Dave.
You're good. Okay. And Mark, you caught up?
Well, that was me that said.
Oh, that was Mark. Sorry, you definitely caught up then. It's Damien, you're up.
This is Damien here. I've got a question too. Is it like we're at the stage at the moment where we're having a training package transition to a new training package?
Yep.
I'm guessing it wouldn't make sense to clone the course when you're moving from training package to training package. You'd really have to start the setup from scratch, wouldn't you?
Unless, well, it depends on the change. If you know how some packages, like I'm doing one for another client, CHC like 08's gone to CHC. Most most of the qualifications are pretty much the same. Got a few new units, or it's using units from the old package and now put into the new package. Where there's enough transition, then it might make sense. I'll just show you the clone function, and then that'll probably answer your thing before I move on to the student side. So the clone, clone is used particularly with enterprise clients, where you might have, say you've got a Cert IV that you're doing for, I don't know, Southern Queensland TAFE. So they choose you to do all of their TAEs for them.
Yep.
So you pick your original course, which is nice squeaky clean, and you set it up as like basically a master course, and you might say, oh, look, we're only going to do these bottom, whatever's that, eight units for this client, and then you can, when you go, so choose the units that you want in it. So if there's a like for like moving from one package to the other, then you might say, I want to pick up all of the evidence I've got, forget about the self-assessments, quizzes and tasks, because I know all that content's correct. And when you hit save, it'll then go and recreate all of that content from behind the scenes, that you can then go in and contextualize specific contents to that enterprise client's requirements. So by that I mean, where if we were to go in here and go straight to the evidence, and say, for example, evidence the ability to analyze a training package, and it might be, for example, that Squid actually have a very specific form that they use for that. So you could actually then ask for them to upload form, let's call it 5566, which is one in the same as analysing a training package and filling out all of that detail. So you could, so you've still got all that content, all that mapping sitting behind the scenes, but you're making it very specific to that one client.
That's really interesting. Yeah, that answers my question perfectly. That's great, thank you.
It kind of really depends. Obviously, if the package is brand new, everything's new in it. No, there's no sense in doing that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But where you can use content across from elsewhere, then everything works on a sort of a library basis. So you bring it across and reuse it and just contextualize it to a different client. Okay.
Great,
so,
thank you.
all right. So I've got so what I've done is enroll myself into this. So that's a case of going enroll a new student so I've just an email address, first name, last name, gender, country, and date of birth. That's all I need. In an integrated sense, that might come straight off a student management system into an enrolment, or in a self-serve model, you might render the course out into its own web page where a student could pick the course and then enroll. And it really depends upon what your model is, and what business process you're trying to copy. Okay, so I'm going to go to the student side now. So and let me just, if I can remember what browser I had. Okay, so let me try and make this a little bit bigger too. I'll just stretch my screen out. So okay, so we're in the student side. Let me just start at the beginning. So what's happened is the student has received an email to say they've had an account created for them in Skillsbook, and you've enrolled them into a Cert IV TAE. They've clicked I accept that, and then have been taken into a home page that starts here. Okay, so this is here's your training plan, Cert IV training and assessment. So it's created the course coupled with the person's name. It creates the training plan. So gives them the instructions. They click, I'm going to do the self-assessment. Again, tells them what it is, and as I said, there's three checklists here. Do you know? Can you do? Do you have? They click start, and as you can see, I've clicked a pile already, but let's go straight down to the bottom. So this is what an individual unit self-assessment looks like. Do you know? And then these are the knowledge statements from that unit. Do you have? That's the critical aspect of evidence piece, and as you can see, I haven't touched that. In an ideal world, I would go in and clean that up a little bit, but we're asking exactly what the unit requires, and the can you do, which are the skills questions. So the candidate goes through and answers, and as you can see, by default this is switched to no, I don't know, so they have to force themselves to say yes. I hit save and I go unit by unit. Obviously you can save and go back and forth until a point where you're happy, or the candidate is happy, and they submit their self-assessment. This says, are you sure you want to submit it? Once you've clicked OK, you can't go back. In fact, at the RTO side, you can go back. We can set it to go back and forth, but from the candidate's perspective, we're telling them once you've submitted anything, you can't go in and play with it. It's submitted, same as handing in your homework. So that's gone back, and if I come back to the RTO side, which is in green, again, sorry, you can't read that too well, but you can see I've got a message in here, and there'd also be an external email if I had that switched on, that David Morgan submitted their self-assessment. I'm going to go and have a look at that. So as you can probably tell, all of that, anything that happens across the system is tracked and time-stamped, and we can pump off a log of that, so we can see exactly what's happening and where people are at. So this is me as the assessor looking at the students' responses. You can see there's, hopefully you can still both see, there's a pile up here, the applicant knowledge test, where nothing has happened yet. There's one item to mark, which is a first attempt at a self-assessment. And there's some, as you can see, assessor interviews. So there's competency conversation, which haven't started either. Okay, so I'm going to go and have a look and mark this self-assessment. And we have the packaging rule up front here. We have each of the units and the responses. So we've got the do you know in this first column, the do you have, the can you do. You can see hopefully over here on the left-hand side under each unit there's a chance of success. So we've got an auto calculation of how likely the candidate is to succeed in this process. So the algorithm behind it is if the candidate, if they can't do any of the required skills, it's automatically 0. If they can do those and everything else is ticked, the maximum score is 80%. So we're not saying you're definitely going to get this, but a very good chance. So you can see with this one, 71%, me as the assessor, they go, yep, I'm going to let you proceed on that one. Same, 75, let you go on that one. 80, yeah, that's a good one. 30%, no, that's too low. That's not worth putting you through the pain. 80% and 53%, probably not. 41, no. 71, yes. Whoops, sorry. Yes. 47, no. 0, no. Okay, so it's pretty quick at this stage from the assessor's perspective. I'm going to say unit selection approved. They've completed their self-assessment okay. You can see down, hopefully see down here, I could have unlocked the self-assessment and let the student do it again. Student enrolled. these bits are your own kind of work process. Payment received, and you can see as soon as I've ticked all of those, a little new button pops up, activate the student. So in other words, student's gone through, we're happy with the units they're going to go forward on. We're going to open up their accounts to then ask them questions and let them load documents. Is that okay at this stage?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to activate the student. Okay.
Can I ask you a question, please, David?
Sure. Yep.
My question is it possible if we pre-select certain percentages that we're satisfied with or whatever, that the student can get an automatic response to the self-assessment rather than requiring an assessor to look it over?
Yep, it is. Yep, we can set that, and we can also set the units that they, the number of units you're going to allow. We can set either or. So yeah, you can basically set it up as a full self-serve, go for it model where you actually build in your rules into what can proceed and what can't. So.
Okay, cool.
Yep. Okay. So. All right. So what it's telling me is I've actually said I'm only going to allow the packaging rules to go forward, which I set that in the course. So I can I'm just going to go. Sorry. I should have relaxed that so I can do this for the demo. Okay, so we only set 10 units and I need all of them, so that's my mistake. I've set it up wrong, but no, still not. Okay, I just need to tick the one I didn't tick on. Whoops, sorry. Sorry if you're getting vertigo looking at the screen going back and forth.
You're good.
That's
I'm looking at two screens.
It's my I don't normally use a.
What's really bizarre for me is that I finally got it. My app is still downloading. Can you believe it?
Is that
I got my Surface Pro out, and then of course I had to set up my my Wi-Fi passcode, which I hadn't done here yet. But the setup for the Citrix is completely different on the Surface Pro, which is using Chrome, to how it looks on my Toughbook, which is using Firefox. Like completely different.
That's bizarre.
Like it's messing with my head, and something, Damien, I'll chat to you about later, because I didn't realise that there was such a diversity. Separate from what we're talking about, David, but I thought I'd say a few things while you're getting your thing together.
Yep. That's bizarre. Yeah.
It is bizarre.
Yeah. Okay, I've just relaxed the packaging rules, so I'm just going to ignore them for what we're doing now. Okay, so quiz responses. Okay. Right, sorry about that. I'm back in. Okay, so we'll just take a couple of those. Back in that one. No. Yes. No. No. Too low. Yes. Okay, done. So approve that, completed, enrolled, paid, activate. Okay, so that then stores all of those results and responses. I come back to the student again. We get an email and an internal email to say been activated, and we won't. Okay, so now you can see we've got the next layer of assessment has popped up. So evidence, knowledge questions, and tasks to log. Okay, so we have this screen. So this is the documentary evidence, and by documentary we're basically meaning anything from video to voice file to photo to Word document, any of these type, and we can we can simply extend those out to whatever you generally use. It's a question of uploading a document. They all then sit in a file library, and that file library can be used as literally as a library. The candidate, or the instructions tell the candidate to read the requirement and then load that document against that requirement. So what you're forcing the candidate to do is not provide you with a shoebox of stuff, but look at the evidence required and provide exactly what it is you're after. So they load that up, submit it, and once submitted, it'll lock that in, so the candidate can still see what they've done, but they can't go in and play with those documents until your assessors reviewed them. They do the same thing for each item of evidence. So you can see there's five here, whereas we started off with 10 units, but we're only going forward on the 5. So they do that. They can also send internal notes back and forward to the assessor, and again, all of those are tracked and logged. So that's the evidence piece. The quiz piece, we have a pile of applicant knowledge tests. Again, the knowledge statements only related to four units in this case. You can really ignore the questions themselves because they're just dummy ones from our play zone. But you can see we've got a whole pile of a question. They type in the answer, usual sort of scenario. We can have multiple choice. We can have true, false. We can have sort of word map, an image map where you can spot a hazard on a picture. We can have scenario quizzes. We can have checklists. You can really have any sort of mixture of all of the above. Obviously, you can make through the editor, you can make this all look better than just a straight text box. And obviously from the RTO side, we can put in reference answers for the assessor, so on and so forth. So they work their way through this, submit the quiz, are you sure? And again, that's then locked, time-stamped, etc., against that item. And the tasks, if we've obviously got some units we forwarded through, but we didn't have the evidence for, they would simply say, I've done blah, 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 and what I actually did was this item. They might add a photo or video or whatever it is, and submit. And we get a little, if I just close that up, we get a little indicator that they've moved forward. If we put their workplace supervisor in there, the supervisor then gets an email to say they've done these tasks. Is that true? Yes or no? And how did they actually perform when doing it, or whatever we set up while doing that? So the candidate progresses through that process. You can see that we've only done one quiz, one evidence, one task. They've still got a fair bit to go. If I come back to the RTO side, which is over in Safari, I'll just go home. Let's go home again. Didn't click. Okay, and just see what's new, what's happened across the system since we last went there. And you can see, obviously once I highlight it, we've got a task submitted, quiz load submitted, evidence uploaded. If I just go and look at one of those, says what's been done, evidence uploaded. I can then hit that hyperlink, download the document, review it. I can unlock it, send it back to the candidate. I can send some notes to the candidate, or I can say something like cited and okay, and say that they've actually satisfactorily completed that. Hit save, and we can look at a task, and we have the student here. They did this illegible task note, I can have a look to see across the different context of the unit what they've done, how long they've spent doing it. Can you see that? Okay, hopefully.
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Okay, and I can, if I'm happy, I can complete that. If the supervisor's included, I can see their comments. But I could say, yeah, I'm satisfied. And even if I could spell it right, that might help. Satisfied. Do that. Go back. Sorry. Well, just as we're leaving that screen, there's a log of, we can download logs and look at all of that sort of stuff. So when I come back and look at the results, so we can see for this first unit, we've got a self-assessment that's been approved. We've cited and okayed the evidence, and we're happy with the task. So we might at that point make an event miss type outcome of RPL granted or not. And we can see across the other items, we've got a whole pile of red, nothing's been done yet. So we work through that process, work through the quiz responses until we're happy the candidate's done what they can. We click this button up here, which is actually going to give us a very big list at the moment, but we click that. It'll go through all of the back end mapping, all of the responses that the assessors have made, and anything that's left over will be dropped into this Excel sheet, which will then enable a competency conversation about all of those gaps. And that's, as they say, is the end of the process. So in fact, not quite the end of the process. We can then also, just to completely make sure everybody's comfortable, we can this entire matrix will render into an email that can be sent to a workplace supervisor to say, this is our assessment at this stage. Can you just approve or disapprove what we're about to do? Finalised, and that's the end of the candidate piece, or that's the end of the RPL process. So this stage,
the question. Someone within the RTO, is that right?
No, somebody in the workplace.
Okay.
So this is you as the RTO, so there's no need to ask yourself twice. You can have multiple assessors looking at the same thing if you like, but no, by supervisor I mean someone in the workplace who can actually sign off that everything the candidate is just another layer of like a third party type thing, but not a unit. It's against your assessment of what they've done. Okay, so let me come back in. So that's the end. That's the end to end. And I'll stop the recording here because we can just ask questions so you can go.